Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football early Friday morning. The Florida State commitment sweatshirt comes back on. Four-star linebacker Izayia Williams flipping his commitment from Ole Miss to Florida State. Look, I think a lot of Florida State fans who are taking the time out of their Friday morning to listen to this episode, chances are you follow the recruiting trail pretty dang closely. Chances are you know what this recruitment has looked like over the last 24 months. It's been one of the more wild recruitments that we've seen over the last couple of years. The jokes will write themselves. And look, I don't blame people for making the jokes as well. Do not let that distract you from the fact that if Florida State ends up signing Izayia Williams in December, that's a big if. I think we all recognize that. But if they do, this is the most talented linebacker that Florida State has signed since Mike Norvell has gotten to Florida State. This kid's an absolute difference maker. I'll start with this. If a lot of other players in this 2026 cycle had the recruitment that Izayia Williams had, I think there's a lot of Power Four programs that would just stop recruiting. There's a reason that these Power Four programs continue to recruit Izayia Williams the way they do because he's a really good football player, and whatever program he does end up at has the potential to be a high-end difference maker at that program. And for a Florida State program that has struggled recruiting linebackers, developing linebackers, this is the kind of guy you want to inject into that room. And I'll say this, really good fit for what Tony White wants to do with his off-ball linebackers as well. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, the Florida State fans, appreciate you guys. And as much as you didn't really expect it, it's been a really fun offseason to talk this program. This is one of the better classes that we've seen Florida State put together, and they're coming off a 2-10 season. I think that speaks to the coaching staff that Mike Norvell signed during the offseason. We knew there were changes that needed to be made in terms of talent acquisition. I've been really impressed with the new coaching staff and how they've gone about their business on the recruiting trail. And I think the most exciting part is what happens if you win more than 2 games in 2025? Like, what does Florida State look like on the recruiting trail if they can build some momentum on the football field? Going to be really fun to monitor. Appreciate you guys rocking with it all summer long. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, if you are a Florida State fan that's not familiar with this recruitment, I'll give you the rundown. It's going to take 30 seconds here. A couple of years ago, starts off his recruitment process, commits to Louisville, flips his commitment to Syracuse, then flips his commitment to Florida State, then flips his commitment to Florida, flips his commitment to Ole Miss, and now he's back committed to Florida State. Now, I will say this, a little caveat here. This is the first program that he has recommitted to during this process. Does that mean Florida State has a better chance of signing this kid in December? We will see. I'm guessing he's going to take some visits in the fall. I'm guessing you're going to have to fight to hold on to this commitment. Kind of going back to how we started this, there's a reason that Florida State's just not stopped the recruiting process. I think for a lot of other players, you look at how this recruitment has gone, no doubt some red flags in the process. You probably would just stop recruiting a lot of kids that had this kind of recruitment. There's and it's not just Florida State. I mean, Georgia was going after this kid hard in the summer. Florida continues to go after this kid. There is a reason that everybody's going after him. Now, what makes Izayia Williams, at least in my opinion, one of the best backers in this 2026 cycle? I mean, 6'2", 215 pounds, one of the more impressive athletes that you'll see at this position in 2026. He flies around the football field. The film tells you one story. The testing data, like it backs it up. I mean, this is a guy that I believe has a broad jump of 10.5 feet. I mean, this is a guy that is really, really explosive. Tests that way. You turn on the film, he's flying around the football field. His ability to go sideline to sideline, operate in space, and close the distance between himself and the ball carrier, it's kind of on another level. And look, you look at the modern day of college football, what do we need from our off-ball linebackers? We need speed and space. Everybody's going to be trying to get their playmakers the football out on the perimeter. If you don't have linebackers that can run, chase, and tackle at a high level, you're going to have trouble dealing with these high end offenses. This is, at least in my opinion, the exact kind of linebacker you need in this day and age of college football. Now, the second thing I love is the fit in this Tony White defense where, I mean, we're going to do a lot with our off ball linebackers. We're going to send them on some blitz packages. That's probably the thing that fires me up the most. Izayia Williams, when you want to walk him up to the line of scrimmage, have him pin his ears back and challenge tackles on the outside shoulder as an edge rusher, Izayia Williams can give you that juice as well. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see him settle into that jack linebacker spot. Probably dependent on how big he gets and how well he can hold up along the line of scrimmage. This kid is a Ferrari coming off the edge in pass rush situations. Really, really big fan of the player. I mean, the way I would wrap this conversation up is that yes, people will make the jokes about how this recruitment has gone. He is on his sixth different verbal commitment. This kid's a very, very good football player and has the potential to be a difference maker for whatever program he ends up at. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, hey, where does Florida State go in the 2026 cycle? And look, I'll start with this, kind of how we opened it. I'm really impressed. You take a look at Florida State and say 22 commitments in the fold, 14 blue chip prospects. I mean, well over the Bud Elliott blue chip ratio, which I'm sure many Florida State fans are familiar with. This is Florida State coming off a 2-10 season. This was a program that looked dead in the water in the month of November, and now they're coming out and probably on pace to sign a top 15, maybe even top 12 class in the country. That tells me this coaching staff knows what they're doing on the trail. That is something that we couldn't say for Florida State. Even when they were winning football games on the field, we kind of just brushed off the recruiting problems to the side. Hey, if you're winning 10 plus games, we ain't going to criticize what you're doing on the recruiting trail because the results on the field seem to be working. We always kind of had that feeling that Florida State left a lot on the table, left a lot to be desired in terms of how we know this program can recruit. You bring in a new coaching staff, and one of the most important things that we were looking for is, yes, we want to see them have elite player development. And I think Tony White and company on the defense side of the football is certainly going to get that done. But we also wanted to see them bring in some higher caliber guys, the high school ranks. Talking Florida State. We should be signing top 10 classes pretty dang consistently at this program. We weren't doing that. Even when this team was winning a lot of football games, we weren't recruiting to the way we needed to. This is going to be one of the better classes that Mike Norvell has signed at Florida State with this new coaching staff coming off a 2-10 year. I've been really impressed with what the new coaching staff has done on the trail. Now, where does Florida State go from here in the 2026 cycle? There's two positions I think you need to address. I'll say this about the running back position. That's not a huge concern if you don't bring in a running back in 2026. I think you would like to, and you might lean into some senior evaluations and maybe try to find a guy that's been flying under the radar. But you got a guy like Usman Chroma, who we know is going to be damn good for the next couple of years. That is a position that you can go find solid running backs in the portal. The two positions I'm looking at, the edge rushers and probably another offensive lineman, specifically a tackle. Because I look at the offensive line class they have and say, I'm a big fan of Jacoby Green. I'm a big fan of actually Deron Parks too. Deron Parks has a chance to make it work at right tackle, but he's probably going to be better off as an interior offensive lineman at guard. I want to get a true tackle prospect in the 2026 cycle. Now, who's that going to be? Hopefully we find out over the next couple of months. That's probably need number one. Or desire number one is, hey, let's go get a guy that we project as a starting left tackle over the next couple of years. And then the edge rusher position. I'm a monster fan of the bodies they've stacked in the middle of the defensive line. You look at the edge rusher spot and say, that's another position where it's harder to find guys in the portal. If you need a running back, if you need to backfill a running back in the portal, that's pretty easy. And go look at the running backs that were available. There's a lot of good guys that can come in and do what Florida State needs. It's hard to find tackles. It's hard to find elite edge rushers in the portal. I want to see Florida State add a couple of bodies at those positions. If you go do that, hey, we're checking a lot of boxes here in the 2026 cycle. There's a chance that if Florida State can win some football games in the 2025 year, we could see Florida State push for a top 10, maybe even top 10 class if some things fall the right way. We'll see how it winds up for Florida State. But again, I've been impressed. And I think Izayia Williams is a great football player for Florida State. We'll sign it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.